Whoa, welcome back everybody, Lady Pelvic here bringing you my latest review on The Last Story for the Nintendo Wii. This is my last game of the XC trilogy, aka Xenoblade Chronicles, Pandora's Tower, and The Last Story. After playing Xenoblade Chronicles and Pandora's Tower, I feel like I set my standards a little too high. I understood this JRPG wasn't going to be as grandeur as Xenoblade Chronicles, but not as compact as Pandora's Tower. It found its way somewhere in the middle. This game was what I expected, but executed poorly. Without further ado, let's get into the nitty-gritty chapters of The Last Story. Chapter 1. The Story of The Last Story. The story takes place on Lazarus Island, a giant, isolated, decaying continent ruled by Count Arganon. Many years ago, humans and a race called the Gurak lived together in harmony until a war broke out because reasons, I guess. You're Zale, and you're a part of a band of mercenaries who share the dream of becoming a knight. During one of your missions, you're blessed, or cursed depending on how you look at it, with the power of the Outsider, aka the Power of Gathering. I'll touch upon the Power of Gathering when I discuss gameplay. For story purposes, you gain the power of the Outsider. After running into a mysterious girl, word gets out that you and the gang perform so well that the Count hires you to protect a royal ball. Because apparently he doesn't have enough men or something. During the ball, the Gurak, who haven't been seen for centuries, attack. And voila! You find yourself fending off the Gurak not only to become a knight, but to save Lazarus Island while uncovering the mysterious power of the Outsider. Pretty solid story. My main concern is the rooted story takes a hot minute to present itself. Don't get me wrong, the main story is superb. The problem is, the journey at times can be dull, missed, or left open-ended. Example being a mystical white tiger, glowing the same blue as the power of the Outsider, even has the symbol of the Outsider on its forehead. You see it once at the beginning of the game, once when you beat the game, and if you read the books in the library, it's mentioned. Hell, the tiger is even on some of the official artwork. Just so you guys aren't wondering, the white tiger is not a plot device, just some mystical, glowing tiger. In addition to deceiving plot devices, you can miss optional chapters if you don't do some of the side quests. Side quests I'll come back to. There are also points in the story that were supposed to be heart-wrenching and dark for the characters, but because the story and the character introductions felt somewhat rushed, I couldn't sympathize or even empathize. The characters are one-dimensional, and while entertaining, I struggle to have any sort of meaningful connection to them. Chapter 2. The Gameplay. Real-time action strategy goodness, baby. When entering a battle, you get a chance to preview the enemy formation to formulate your next action. Character dialogue will give you hints on how to approach the formation, or point out your surroundings that could be broken and used to your advantage. There are several ways to go into battle. Head-on, as an archer with an array of different arrows and utilizing the cover option, or maybe as a tank and use your Outsider ability, aka Gathering. What Gathering does is make all the enemies focus on you, giving your allies a chance to cast their magic uninterrupted and at a faster rate. Your team sometimes consists of mages who each cast different elemental spells, which not only do heavy damage, but leave a magic circle, which gives your team elemental damage if they walk through it. Zale can use Gale and dispel the circle and do all sorts of AoE damage. Depending on what circle you dispel, depends on the effect. Fire puts enemies' guards down, while the forest casts silence on enemies. The issue with fights, particularly the ones that involve magic, is it tends to be very jam-packed and the frames per second really takes a hit. The area can get so swarmed with magic circles that you're left vulnerable as a player because you can't see what's going on. It also doesn't help that nearly all the fights are in tight areas. Boss battles were a hit or a miss. Some of them were really fun, clever, or challenging, while others were just easy or annoying and time-consuming. There were also boss battles that were repetitively set up. The amount of times your party was split up, then reassembled during the boss battle, really lost its wow factor after a while. It was almost like I was expecting my teammates to pile in at the last second. Oh, and on a semi-unrelated note, did you know Ganondorf is in this game? Me either. If you're not in a sea cave or a man-eating mansion, then you're probably in Lazarus City, which is where most of the story takes place. Because the city was so big, I didn't mind the lack of an open world. Hell, the city was kind of its own little world. The interface lacks some basic things, however, such as having no quest log. If you needed to remember a quest, you had to write that shit down or find the one person in the giant city and ask them again. Because of this, I was extremely discouraged to accomplish any of them. The last feature that really ticked me off is what I'm going to call the find feature. There will be times where you have to look for something in first person. Maybe I just suck at finding things, but it took me a while sometimes and it just stalled the game for me. A minor gripe, but something I thought I'd mention. And just FYI, this game had a multiplayer feature, but I guess now it's discontinued. Understandably so, since it's not a popular game and it did come out in 2012. Research says that you play it against other people as the main mercenary characters. Seems like something they just tacked up. Anyway, moving right along. Chapter 3, the graphics. They're fine, a little gritty, but I mean, graphics for the Wii. The character looks I was a fan of, however, they didn't look too hot on an HD TV. This game is best played at 480p, or else the game gets gritty. During character conversations, the lack of emotion on their faces was just awkward. It sometimes looked like they weren't even looking at each other. Luckily, the voice acting was good.
Don't you dare turn into that, Zale.
Don't turn into a raging alcoholic like her either.
The color tone is very dark and murky, but adds a sense of the land's decay. The surroundings of the last story are detailed and well fleshed out. The city is huge and closely resembles cities of Assassin's Creed, with narrow walkways and several people. The dungeons, however, are a lot smaller and don't really compare to the detail of the city. Chapter 4, the music. It was just okay. Don't get me wrong, it had some sick violin work, and it did have a few gems, just none I was crazy about. I know, some of you are probably like, what? This is the guy who makes Final Fantasy music all up in this. Yep. And there still wasn't much I was crazy about. This soundtrack had a lot of chill songs, and my personal taste is loud, outgoing tracks. I can happily say that there wasn't any awkward fitting background music, but what there was plenty of was character dialogue getting cut off. It was incredibly frustrating to walk through the dungeon while characters were still talking, and then when you reach a certain area, the dialogue suddenly stops and a new cutscene begins.
You have a monstrous ego there.
And you can... I know that has nothing to do with the soundtrack. I was just kind of pairing the general audio and the music together for a second. Anyway, my favorite tracks are primarily the fight music, especially the final boss. But my number one tune would be Invitation to Madness. You know when you're playing a game and you know this certain character you're going to cross blades with and you can't wait for the time that happens? It is this battle that this track belongs to. It made slaying a certain character all the more pleasurable. It's like California surfing mixed with some striking violin work. Enjoy Invitation to Madness. It. Nintendo Wii's real-time, third-person action JRPG, The Last Story. This game earns a 7 out of 10. I want it to be better than average, but it's just kind of average. It was just the game's constant annoyances of the interface and the huddled battles that really just held this game back for me. Quick rundown of the breakdown. The story is 7 out of 10. Not because the story's average, it was just getting to the story was bleh. Now once you got to the story, it had my attention. I was in it, I was engaged, I was enjoying it, I loved it. It had one-dimensional characters, and I feel like that kind of could take away from the story. It was just like your typical anime characters of like, oh, one's a flirt, one's a drunk, you have like the main character who wants to do good, and then you have the one kind of like questionable one. They were all just one-dimensional. Some of them had maybe a little bit more than others, but not much. And I just had a hard time connecting with these characters and caring about them. The missable chapters, aka the side quests, which I didn't do because I was like, I can't keep track of all this crap. You talk to some person and then they tell you something and hope you remember. Granted, you can go back and ask that person, but I'd forget. The town is so big. It just... Nah, man, nah. Lack of explanation, like that white tiger. I am so butthurt about that white tiger. This thing had the outsider's mark on its forehead. It was glowing the same blue as Zale's outsider power, like something. I wanted something. Nope, you just saw it at the end of the game. It's just chilling, like, yo, you beat the game, congrats. The gameplay is about a 6 out of 10. It's action-packed, which is awesome, but it's sometimes too action-packed, and I didn't know what was going on. There's just too many magic circles. The Gathering had so many enemies on my ass. I was like, what? And you really get tossed around like a ping pong ball when these enemies come at you, man. So I just felt really helpless. What was cool was there was different ways to go about the battle, which I really liked. I was like, oh, this is awesome. You know, I can be an archer, I can be really sneaky with it, or I can just go in there, attack, blah, blah, blah. So options are always nice. The repetitive boss battle startups where like your people would come in at the last second or they'd slowly pile in just happened all the time. Same thing with like boss battles where you're almost about to like wreck them and something happens where you don't actually defeat them, a cutscene happens, it's like, oh, okay, I guess I'll see you later, I'll fight you later. The interface, as I already told you, it was just weak. I hated the interface. That's why I didn't do any of the side quests. The fact that I just couldn't tell what weapons I had equipped versus the weapon I wanted to buy in comparison, which was better, which was worse. You're gonna make me like go back to the menu, look at it, okay, then go back, talk to the merchant, look at it, compare it, like, Same thing with side quests, like I have to find the person all over again if I forget something. Graphics I'd give a 9 out of 10. Poor Wii can only handle so much. I like the look of the characters, I really do. I like the artwork of the characters, I like the look of them. It's just when you stare at them for too long, it's a little creepy. It's the Wii, so no HD, and if you played in like 1080p or try to, you know, with your HD TV, it looks really gritty and grainy and awful. Nice details of the surrounding, and I really wish they brought that same level of detail to their dungeons, because their dungeons, you know, it was fine, but nowhere near the town. The lack of character emotion is another thing that just was awkward. Like when they were talking, the voice acting and their expression didn't match, and it was really like uncomfortable to watch. The music was an 8 out of 10. There were a few songs where I was like, yep, this right here, it's my jam. But most of the songs I felt kind of like, oh, this is fine, like something I'd go to sleep to, but nothing I was really feeling. The soundtrack isn't bad, it's just not to my personal taste. All the battle music was awesome, especially when you're battling and then you somehow thwart the hardest part of the battle. The music changes to some kind of an uplifting, like, yeah, you got this, like you're about to win kind of music. And it was kind of cool to see, or rather hear, that you were about to win, or you took down the hardest part of the boss or something like that. Voila! The last story for the Nintendo Wii U. Bam! I suggest you guys get your hands on this game and at least give it a try. I know I harped on it a lot because of the BS story of you becoming a knight and the clunky gameplay, but if you can get past it or trudge through it, it's really not a bad game. It's just those two things that are really frustrating. My question to you is, have you ever played a game where the story was excellent but you just hated the gameplay? If so, what game would that be? Mine, probably every turn-based game ever. Not really, but God, sometimes turn-based drives me freaking crazy. No, I can't, that's a really tough question. My next game in line would probably be Twilight Princess. I think I just didn't like that game at all, though. Anyways, let me know in the comments below what you thought of this review, The Last Story. Have you played it? Is it your favorite game out of Pandora's Tower, Xenoblade Chronicles, and of course The Last Story? Just what you thought. Thanks again, guys, for watching, and hopefully this weekend I will see some of you majestic creatures at MetroCon in Tampa, Florida. Thank you again for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Bye!